My name is Justin Hale. I was 17 years old, sitting alone in my dad's office at midnight, when a stranger on Omegle turned on her lights, and I saw something that put me in bed with a fever for 3 days. I want to tell you what I saw. Not the costume, not the makeup, not the performance. What I saw after the performance ended. What I saw when the news came on 4 days later. And what I have understood since then about the difference between someone who is disturbed and someone who is dangerous. Leave a comment if you have ever stayed on a connection you knew you should have left. Keep listening, because I stayed, and I wish every day that I had not. The office at midnight. I want to explain the specific circumstances of that night because they mattered in ways I did not understand until later. It was a Saturday in November. My parents had gone to bed around 10:30. My dad was a light sleeper and had a strict policy about screen time after 11, which I had been violating for about a year by the time this happened. His office was at the end of the hall with a door that locked from the inside. His laptop had a faster connection than my phone, and the screen was large enough to actually use comfortably. I had developed a routine of waiting until the house was quiet, taking the laptop from his desk and sitting in the glow of the table lamp for 2 or 3 hours before putting everything back exactly where I found it. I was bored that night in the particular way that 17-year-olds get bored at midnight on a Saturday when most of their friends are either out somewhere, they were not invited, or asleep. I had been on my phone for an hour and exhausted everything interesting on it. I opened Omegle mostly out of habit, the way you reach for a bag of chips, not because you are hungry, but because it is there. For the first hour, it was what Omegle usually was. I cycled through connections quickly. A man with his camera aimed at his chest who did not seem to notice or care. Someone in another country who spoke no English and looked as bored as I was. Several people who disconnected within 3 seconds of seeing me, which was a mildly unpleasant thing that I had learned to not take personally. I was about to close the laptop and go to bed. I decided on one more connection. The video feed loaded on the other person's end, and it was completely black. Not the grayed out placeholder that shows when someone's camera's off. Black the way a room is black when no light source is active at all. I could see nothing. I typed, "Your webcam is off." I waited. About 2 minutes passed. I was about to hit skip when a reply appeared in the chat. It said, "I can see you." I looked at the black feed more carefully. The way you look at something dark when you want to see if there is more in it than darkness. There were 2 eyes, just the eyes. Reflecting, what I realized must have been the light from the other person's screen. Small, dim, unmoving, aimed directly at the camera, aimed directly at me. I felt the specific chill that comes not from being startled, but from realizing that something has been present for longer than you knew. I'd been sitting in my dad's office, assuming I was being observed by no one, and there had been 2 eyes watching me for 2 minutes while I typed into the dark. Then the lights came on. The girl in the costume. The room on the other end was a standard bedroom. Desk bookshelf visible at the edge of the frame. A window behind the person with dark outside and curtain partly open. Normal room. The kind of room you see in 100 Omegle connections. The person in it was not a normal sight. She had put significant work into a costume. The character she was presenting was modeled on Annabelle the doll from the horror films. Twin braids with red ribbons, white dress with lace collar, heavy red blush applied in exaggerated circles on each cheek. The eye makeup was done in the wide-eyed anime style with the lash line extended dramatically, and something applied to make the whites of her eyes seem larger than they naturally were. The effect was unsettling in the way that detailed recreation of horror imagery always is the uncanny quality of something familiar done precisely wrong. But my first reaction was also genuine appreciation for the craft involved. She had done this carefully. The specific details were correct. It was not a half effort thrown together. She watched me without blinking. Then she smiled. The smile was wrong in a way I could not immediately name. Not forced exactly, more like calibrated, like a smile that had been practiced in a mirror for the specific purpose of landing at the upper edge of comfortable. I told her the costume was good. I said she had caught me off guard with the lights off. Her voice did not match the visual. I had expected something high and girlish to match the character. What came out was coarser than that, with a strained quality to it, the voice of someone talking at a register that is not natural for them. It sounded like effort. She told me her name was Annabelle. She asked mine. I told her Justin. She asked my age. I said I was not sure with all the makeup, it was hard to tell how old she was. Her expression changed immediately. The smile disappeared. Her face went from performance mode to something more direct and less readable. She brought her face close to the camera. She asked what I was looking for. She asked if I was trying to see inside her. Then she laughed. Not the laugh of someone who has made a joke. A different kind. Sustained and a little too consistent, the laugh you produce when you want to signal amusement without actually feeling it. I should have skipped at that point. The rational assessment of the situation was clear. This was either a person who enjoyed making others uncomfortable or a person who had significant difficulty with conventional social interaction and had found Omegle as a result. Neither category required my continued presence. I stayed. I asked her real name. She said she had already told me. She had no interest in providing information that would attach a real identity to whatever she was doing on this platform at this hour in this costume. I went quiet. She tilted her head to one side at the silence. Then she asked me a question. The knife, she asked if I wanted to see a magic trick. I said sure in the flat way you say sure when you are not particularly invested in the answer, but cannot think of a reason to say no. She told me to watch carefully. She stood up from her chair, which brought the full costume into view. She crossed to the closet on the right side of the room. She opened it. The sound that came out of that closet was a woman crying. Not a sound effect, not a recording. The specific rhythm of genuine distress, the catch in the breathing between sobs, the quality of involuntary sound that cannot be effectively staged because it has a randomness to it that performance cannot replicate. I know this because I have thought about this question many times since that night. Whether what I heard was authentic, and the answer I always arrive at is yes. What I heard was real. I could not see into the closet from where the camera was positioned. I could only hear it. What happened next is not something I am going to describe in detail. I am going to tell you what I heard and what I understood from what I heard. I heard the sound that a sharp edge makes against resistance. I heard it more than once. I heard the crying change quality and then diminish. And I heard the person on the other end of the camera saying things to the person in the closet that I am not going to repeat here because the words are not the point and they are not something I want to put back into the world. I sat in my father's office chair and I could not move. I am aware that sounds dramatic. I am aware that the reasonable response to what I was watching would have been to close the laptop and call 911. I want to explain honestly why neither of those things happened in the first several minutes. My brain was doing two things simultaneously and they were contradicting each other. One part was processing what my senses were telling me, which was that I was watching something real happen to a real person. The other part was working extremely hard to construct a version of events where that was not true. A recording, a stage performance. Two people who had arranged this for exactly the reaction I was having, the shock and paralysis of a teenage kid alone in his dad's office at midnight. That second process is not stupidity. It is a protective mechanism. The brain resists accepting information that has no adequate response available because the alternative is the complete helplessness of understanding fully and being able to do nothing. I sat in that chair for what I think was about 4 minutes. I know approximately how long because I checked the time when I finally moved and subtracted backward from when I had last looked at the clock. When I finally moved, I called 911. I told the dispatcher what I had seen. I told her the platform and that the feed was a video chat. I told her I did not know where the person was. She asked me a series of questions and I answered all of them. She told me officers were going to need to speak with me and that I should stay on the line. I stayed on the line. The person on the other end of the Omegle chat had come back to her seat by then. Her costume was no longer clean. She put the knife on the desk. She brought her face close to the camera. She said she had one more magic trick. She put her hands on her face. She started to remove the makeup. I watched the Annabelle costume dissolve under her hands. The white face paint, the exaggerated blush, the elaborate eyework. She rubbed it away methodically from the forehead, down the way you wash a face, covering the camera lens, with her palm periodically as she worked. When she lowered her hands the last time, the face on the screen was not a woman's face. It was a middle-aged man, pale, unshaven, the stubble coming through what was left of the makeup around the jaw and chin. His features were heavy and particular, the kind of face that you would recognize if you saw it again, not forgettable. He looked at me through the screen. He said, "Happy now. You wanted to see the real me." I closed the laptop. I do not remember closing it. I remember being in the hallway outside my father's office, and then I remember being at my parents' bedroom door. I remember the sound of my own fist on the wood. I remember the door not opening fast enough, and I remember sliding down the wall next to it. And the next thing I remember clearly is my mother's face above me in the hallway light. The fever, I was sick for 3 days. My parents brought a doctor who said it was a stress response, a spike in cortisol so significant that my body had essentially rebooked the energy it would normally spend on immune function. My temperature was over 100 for most of the first 2 days. I could not tell my parents exactly what I had seen. I could not find the sequence of words that would allow me to say it plainly. I told them I had seen something disturbing on the internet. My father was not as angry about the laptop as he might otherwise have been, because whatever he saw on my face that night in the hallway told him that the conversation about the laptop policy could wait. The police came while I still had a fever. 2 detectives, both patient, neither of them treating me like a kid who had been somewhere he should not have been online. They asked detailed questions about the visual, the room, the furniture, the window, the curtain, the specific details of the makeup and the costume. I gave them everything I could remember. I drew the arrangement of the room on a piece of paper one of them produced. I described the voice the way it had been pitched differently from the natural register, the quality of the strain in it. They had been receiving similar reports from other users who had connected with the same account. There were several people who had seen some portion of what I had seen. Most of them had disconnected sooner than I had. They told me they had what they needed and that the account data had already been provided to them by the platform through an emergency legal request process. They said they would be in touch. I went back to bed. The news 4 days after the night in the office, I was sitting on the couch in the living room. I was well enough to be out of bed, but not well enough to want to do much of anything. My dad came in and changed the channel to the evening news. The segment was about a man who had been arrested in a parking lot at the eastern edge of the city. The footage showed police tape around a dumpster. The reporter used the phrase evidence disposal. The camera cut to a photograph of the man. I recognized him, not from context or from logical inference. I recognized his face directly and immediately, the specific arrangement of his features, the heavy jaw, the particular pale quality of his skin, the way his eyes sat in his face. He was the face I had watched remove makeup in a bedroom on a screen at midnight. His name was released in the reporting over the following days, along with a charge summary that I am not going to repeat in detail. What I will tell you is that what I had witnessed was not an isolated incident, and that the closet in the room I had seen through the camera was not the first time the closet had been opened. Investigators described a pattern of behavior that had been ongoing for months before that night. He referred to himself in materials found at the apartment as a performer. He used the word performance consistently in his documentation of what he was doing. He had constructed an elaborate framework in his own understanding of his actions, a theater with an audience, an art form with an aesthetic. He filmed each incident. He broadcast some of them. I was one of the audience members he had not planned for. The detective who had taken my statement called me after the arrest to tell me what they had found and to confirm that my account had been useful in establishing certain details of the case. He told me I had done the right thing by calling when I did. He told me the call had contributed to a timeline that mattered. I did not feel particularly good about that. I felt the ongoing presence of those 4 minutes in the office chair, the 4 minutes of brain chemistry doing its two-part contradiction while a real person needed help, and I sat still and waited for certainty that the help was needed. The detective said something I have thought about since. He said that most people in my position, seeing what I had seen through a screen at that distance, would not have called at all. He said the majority of people would have closed the laptop and tried to forget it. He said the call was the right choice regardless of the delay. I understood what he was trying to do, and I appreciated it. I have not fully accepted it. What I know now, I am 24 years old as I am telling you this. That was 7 years ago. I went into psychology after high school, not because of that night directly, but not entirely separately from it either. I wanted to understand the specific thing about how a person constructs a framework in their own mind that makes what they are doing acceptable to themselves. The language of performance, the audience, the art form, how a person gets from a normal starting point to a place where those words apply to what they are doing in a locked room. The answer is not a simple one, and I am not going to pretend it is. What I will tell you is what I have learned from studying this professionally. The behavior I witnessed was not impulsive. It was not the product of a moment. It was the end point of a long process of incremental normalization, a series of small steps that each felt like a logical extension of the previous one. At no single point was there a clear line being crossed. There was a gradual trajectory that had no visible turning point from the inside. The platform was a component of that, not because Omegle caused anything, but because Omegle provided something specific that the process needed an audience. The anonymity of the audience was part of it. The randomness of the audience was part of it. The inability of the audience to intervene or to identify him was part of it. He needed witnesses. He needed people on the other side of the screen who would react and then disconnect, carrying the image with them, unable to do anything with it, except that some of them called, and the call created a timeline, and the timeline contributed to an arrest. I want to say something about the 4 minutes I spent in that chair before I called. I have spoken about this in therapy, and I want to be precise about what I have concluded. The delay was a product of a normal cognitive process in an abnormal situation. The protective mechanism that resists accepting information with no adequate response is not a character flaw. It is how the brain manages catastrophic input. Most people spend longer than 4 minutes in that state when confronted with something that's severe. What I have concluded is not that I failed during those 4 minutes. What I have concluded is that the call happened. Whatever was happening in my brain during the delay, the outcome was the call. The call was the thing that mattered. I have had to work to reach that conclusion. It did not come easily. It required time and help from professionals who knew how to ask the right questions. If you are ever in a position where you see something on a screen on any platform that suggests a real person is in real danger, start recording immediately before anything else. Start a screen recording on your device the second the recognition arrives. Get that footage saved to a location that will survive if the chat closes or if you lose access to the page. Then call. Do not wait for certainty. Certainty will not arrive in time. Call on what you have. The call I made with the laptop closed, sitting on the floor in the hallway of my dad's office, was based on incomplete certainty. I did not know with absolute confidence that what I had seen was real. I knew with sufficient confidence that was enough. It has to be enough, because the alternative is the 4 minutes extending into 8 and then into 20 and then into never. And the difference between calling on sufficient certainty and waiting for absolute certainty is the difference between the timeline the detective described to me and the one where I closed the laptop and went to bed. I closed it eventually, but I made the call first. That sequence is the only thing about that night that I have been able to look at without flinching. I do not use Omegle. I have not since that night. I do not particularly care about that. There is nothing on that platform that I need badly enough to go looking for it again. What I care about is the understanding I have developed in the years since. The understanding of how ordinary a starting point can be, how incremental a trajectory, how many steps between normal and unrecognizable, each one small enough to step over without noticing. The man in the Annabelle costume was not born in a closet with a knife. He arrived there through a process that had a beginning point somewhere in the ordinary range of human experience. The distance between that beginning and that closet is the thing I have spent 7 years trying to understand. I am closer to understanding it now than I was at 17. I do not think I will ever fully close the gap. I keep the table lamp off when I'm at a desk at night. Old habit, I do not want to be visible in a window. I do not think that will ever go away.